What's going on, Internet? And welcome to another ARFCOM review. But this, unlike a review of a specific firearm, we're going to be talking about handguns and what you should do when you're picking your first one, but not for you, the prospective person, but for the ladies in your life. I have a wonderfully diverse panel here of women who shoot and carry guns every single day. Sometimes not in that order, but we're going to have a really cool discussion about how to pick your handgun and what's important for that, and often some pitfalls to avoid if you're trying to convince your lady to go pick a handgun, or you are a lady yourself and you are trying to avoid a lot of the issues they probably ran into. So we're shortcutting all of that for you, and we will get right into that conversation after a quick word from our sponsor.
This video is sponsored by the Mark 15 Hydra. The Mark 15 is the most versatile black rifle platform the industry has ever seen. The most you will ever need to convert calibers is barrel, bolt, and a magwell. The changing is quick and easy, and the combinations are practically limitless. With just one serialized lower, you can have any configuration you can imagine. And by TNVC, check out the new Mars LC 2000 meter laser rangefinder. It's compact and loaded with features including a built-in ballistic computer, Bluetooth, a red aiming laser, as well as an IR ranging laser which cannot be detected by most night vision devices. Check out tnvc.com for all the details.
So on the round table, and we'll probably kick in names and plates and stuff like that, we have Michelle here, who we got to shoot with earlier today. We have some wonderful B-roll of rizzing her up and shooting people in the wiener. So that was a hilarious bit. We do have Chelsea. She is back from the last panel. Jara is here,
Hello.
likely to go drop some opinions on y'all. And then we have Bonnie here, who is hopefully going to stay as appropriate as I can keep her for being on camera. So the very first thing we're going to address here is, and we talked about this beforehand for some talking points, was purpose. And there's a bigger purpose for firearms in general, but for here and for the scope of this conversation, it is at least personal defense. This is going to be specifically for a handgun. I want to go down, and Michelle, I'll start with you. What caused you to buy your first firearm, if that was a handgun, and if it wasn't a handgun, I guess just go skip to the handgun part of it.
Well, what opted me was I was working at a gun store retail shop long before it was cool. So I was working at a gun show he was a dentist actually in McKinney, and he was a Walther collector. It started out as a collection, and then he just kept adding to his inventory, and then just got his FFL, and I did all the paperwork. And I got to a point where I'm like, it's kind of sketchy, some of the areas that you travel to, gun shows, and he had the whole booth with all the guns, and I was just kind of feeling it, and I thought, ooh, that shiny one, I want that. And I felt it, and it felt really good, and it was small, and it was a Walther PPKS, so I made a full circle around. I didn't shoot it much, but when I did go shoot and practice, because my husband, or my boyfriend at the time, forced me to go shoot. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm just going to throw it in the, purse, and I'm good. But when I did shoot it, I noticed that I'm like, oh, why is it jumping out of my hand? And that's when I decided, okay, I need to figure out how to shoot my carry gun. And then, of course, I traded in for a Glock 19 in my training. But that was my number one reasoning, is because it fit my hand, and at the time I wanted to conceal, so that's why I picked the PPKS. So
I think too, that's probably, my wife had a very similar experience where she went and got to try everything and was like, I like this one, and that's just what she stuck with until she had to shoot it more.
Yeah.
But I think that it was more important, and I guess for the point of this discussion, I'm glad you at least came to the determination by yourself.
Right.
Got to pick it for yourself, because look at what that's done for the rest of your life for that.
Right.
It was a very good, positive experience.
Yeah,
in
I didn't
picking.
have any exterior, a lot of the women that when I was working at the show, I've noticed, they're like peer pressure. And then all the men are like SIG guy and the Glock guy, and they were all like pushing the women, and then they would go to the table over there, and they're like, no, get over here. And that's kind of how I got into instructing, because I was kind of there. I started out from scratch, where it was just my way of protecting myself. And then when I went out to shoot, I was like, ooh, I don't know about this. Maybe I need a little bit more training and kind of figure out what I need to do to fix it. And then you just keep growing from that.
So, Chelsea, we got a bit of that first. I remember the story from last one. You guys go see the other video. It was hilarious. But go ahead and give us the rundown on how you picked your first handgun and what that experience was like.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So, long story short, the first time I ever went shooting, it was with my dad, and it was the P89 Ruger. And
Still an oof
that
every
thing
time I hear
was
it.
rough.
I remember that. Yeah.
Woof.
It was
I forgot about that story.
Every time I remember, I was like, ugh. We watched it in editing afterwards, and we were like, man, every single time we just kind of shook our head. I was like, that is a bad.
Woof. Okay.
Yeah, it was not good, not good. And then afterwards, I was kind of like pushed into buying the Glock 26 as my first handgun, and I thought it was what I wanted at the time. Similar to Michelle, I've been in the industry for a while, and I was just kind of influenced by going out to multiple events and seeing so many great shooters. I was like, man, I want to do that. I want to be that cool. So I kind of just took it upon myself to just to kind of learn and educate myself on the different options. And, you know, I ended up trading up to getting rid of that 26, and now I own the GST9 Mod 100. It's really cool. And then also the S365 for my P3 or S365 grip for the 6-hour P365. And those two are my favorite, and they're really easy to train with, in my opinion.
Yeah, but somebody did you dirty in the beginning, girl.
They did me dirty. I was, to be fair, I was very discouraged at first.
Yeah.
I was so discouraged, and I didn't know what I wanted. And I was like, this is not for me. And then after I got the Glock, I was like, you know what? Okay, this is much easier to shoot. You know, 9mm, super simple. And then I ended up really enjoying full size. I kind of like had like a different reaction. I guess most people start full size, then go compact. But I started compact and then moved to full size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the worst story I've heard, fortunately. At least it's good. But I do like, and you come at it from a relatively unique perspective. You're younger than all of us here on this table. But you actually had women to look up to that were in the public space shooting versus like a lot of other, like, I'm sorry for the older ladies in this audience.
Like
it did not
the
exist.
old ladies over here.
Yes. she's the baby of the show, if we're going to be honest.
Oh
But
my
like
gosh.
not having, like, I've talked to some of my other coworkers here that it's like, whether it's in movies or in video games or even just like YouTube, when YouTube first came out, everybody that was in there were guys that I look up to that I was like, wow, like that's the really, I want to go be a Delta Force operator or whatever. Like I got to have that at a very young age. So getting to firearms as a guy seems so much more straightforward, and all of the dudes in the movies had guns, and you're like, oh, I really want this older model Smith & Wesson, or I really want that. There was very few examples of that for women. And I think the only one I could think of, and help me in the comment section, I think it's the Brave one with Jodie Foster. And there's a whole thing about her trying, I think it's like a car pistol she ends up with,
Sure.
of all the guns that they could have given her. But that's the only one on the top of my mind where it's like yes, I'm sorry, I stole it. It's infected me. That's the only one I can think of right off the top of my head that showcases that in a more modern film that's not like sci-fi or
Right.
fantasy. That was a realistic
Right.
take. Jared, give it to us.
Well, you know, I just want to kick it back to you one more time. It could have been an LCP.
That's true.
No.
Yeah. Bro, we're really
a little
dunking on
dirtier
Ruger
than
here.
that Ruger. But
Yeah.
for me, my first carry pistol was a Glock 26. I had a stalker situation, but I was at a little bit of an advantage because I was a competitive 3-gunner before all of that. And so I kind of knew based on that, I had to get a little bit more of an education in, you know, self-defense versus,
self-defense,
you know,
because
competitive
it's like
shooting.
total.
Yeah.
It's two different things, but I had a pretty good idea of how pistols worked and kind of what I wanted out of it. And I wanted simple. I had a lot of shooting experience, so I didn't need a safety. We'll talk about that, I'm
Right.
sure.
Yep.
And then I wanted, I wanted some capacity to it. So the 26 worked for me. It was easy to take apart, clean, put together, all that. So I was really happy with it for a long time. Now, obviously, my collection has grown as I've, you know, different outfits and, you know, I have a
Absolutely.
238 that I carry sometimes. I'm a huge proponent of the Rost Martin now,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I carry that almost every day. So I've got a few different ones.
Bonnie, give it to us.
Give it to us, yeah. Well, my experience getting into wanting to get a firearm, like I said last time, is just a bad marriage experience, wanting to protect myself and my child. So I had shot I had gone shooting with like some friends a couple of times, so I tried a different handguns, but I decided that I wanted to carry every day.
Yeah.
So I went to the store, and I mean, they tried to sell me a revolver.
Of course they
and
do.
We'll talk about that.
It's
Yeah.
But then I tried a few
Simple.
different ones, and my first gun was a M&P Shield.
Goated.
So
That is a
Yeah,
great gun.
that's a good.
it was a great gun,
Yeah.
and it was, tried it. I mean, it was a little hard to, like, I wasn't able to get, like, the slide lock. So I had to, like, just rack the slide, which worked. But it was a great first gun
Oh yeah.
to train with. And I carried it for a while without any actual training. And
that's
then
what I did.
and I wasn't really aware of the dangers of, like, the way you carry it,
Right.
like
Oh, yeah.
how was
Sure.
it, like you said, like first, like, oh, just dump it in a
Yeah,
purse.
I
and
just
all
kind
that.
of found a slot.
Found a slot and dumped it.
At first, yeah, but then I reached out to a friend and, hey, give me recommendations on good, trainer, good.
Yeah.
So I found one, and first training class that I took, I realized, okay,
Yeah,
I need to
absolutely.
train. I need to keep training. And then I transitioned from there, I realized I transitioned to a Glock 19, and that's now my main carry,
I think both of y'all experienced the worst case scenario as far as getting the experience to shoot. You, though, you were like your choice to carry a pistol specifically obviously came from a bad situation, but like
Yeah.
at least you had a foundational.
foundation.
Yeah,
knowledge
nobody tried to
base.
sell me a revolver because I would have Ron Swanson that
Exactly.
quick. I would have been
But
like, I
like-
know more than you.
Hi there. Is there a project you're working on? I know more than you.
In today's day and age, I think the goal, and it's the reason why we really did this panel, is we're hoping that more people have Chelsea's experience where she has a mentor, she has people to look for, and she has like examples to look towards in
Right.
mentorship and trying to
Right.
get
Oh
it.
my gosh, yeah.
Versus the worst case scenario is you have no training, you purchase it, you're like, hey, I have it, I guess, so I'm safe, and
Right.
it's the biggest.
And
Yeah.
you're brand new. I was brand new in the whole industry too. Like I said, I didn't have anyone
Right.
to look up to,
Oh, yeah.
anyone that I knew. Everything is brand new, no knowledge.
Yeah,
And then I remember going into it. Michelle was my very first woman that I looked
Woman.
up to.
yeah.
I remember that
Same.
very
Goated.
clearly. I saw your account, and she was my example.
I think it's important, and obviously that we'll have Twitter handles and Instagram handles, so if people want to reach out to them, that they're a much better resource than I would be, or even most trainers, only because the lifestyle is very different, and like the motivations are typically going to be very different for women versus for men. And a lot of classes that I've gotten to go to, or even training I've gotten to go to, if it wasn't tied to a specific profession, like everyone there's like, I just want to be good. Like I watched John Wick and I thought it was rad. And so
Right.
like everyone goes with this very different like self-affirming thing, where for women it's been like, I'm not going to win a fist fight.
Right.
Like this is my only shot at it. And then like I want to take some onus of my safety. But like if nobody understands that, almost all of what you're hearing advice-wise is
Yeah.
poor. And it's like, oh, well, do this because I don't know what it's like to be
Right.
a woman. So I'm
Yeah,
glad.
I'm-
Thank you, one,
yeah.
for sharing all that. But the ergos and hand size. I think hand size might also work for men. As some people got smaller hands. I'm not here to disparage
Yes,
anything,
that's
but
true. Men have.
across the board, I've noticed that women tend to have smaller hands. There are exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, pause over here.
Hey man, she probably gives really rad back massages. Okay, this is what you want. But we'll go same order.
She's gonna be in
we'll
one of
talk.
those professional slapping competitions.
Yes,
for
we're
too
rooting
long.
for her.
But Michelle, I'll start with you as far as ergos on hand size. I know that, and obviously you're shooting competitions, and so there's
Yes.
probably some that goes into that. But like, what do you think's like the biggest issues that people run into as far as hand size and ergos when picking that handgun? Because you went, Walter PPS
Yes.
or whatever, and you were like, I hate this already. Like the first round down the pipe, you're like, what?
I didn't hate it because I really didn't know. But I
Yeah.
mean, it fit my hand. So when I went to shoot it, it was fine because that's all I knew. When you're looking for a gun, it's kind of like everybody keeps talking about shoes. It's so.
Oh,
I
I never
mean-
thought about that analogy. That actually makes a lot of sense.
'cause
Yeah.
I mean, like there's so many different brands of tennis shoes, and if your feet are, built a little bit different, I mean,
It's got a wide foot.
yeah.
I have a
and
wide foot. Yeah.
That's exactly how it is with the grip, and I think that's why I went down the table and I gripped everything, and it just felt good in my hand, and I was able to manage that recoil, even though it was a 380 and it kicks. I did pretty good until I decided to train. Then I needed something that would hold more capacity and that kind of thing, and that's kind of how I grew from that. So in a perfect world, you want at least two, one to train with and one to conceal.
Sure.
I think it just has to fit you right and able to control that recoil. And like we talked about, size matters because your budget is number one, but are you going to be able to conceal that handgun, train with it? So
Yeah, when we talk about ergonomics, you have to think of several things. You have to think of recoil management, being able to reach the controls. Lefties have
Right, that's
some
true.
additional things to consider. So, if you're predominantly left-handed, you're going to want to make sure that you get an ambidextrous gun that has
Ambidextrous, right.
the mag release on both sides. You need to make sure that when you grip that gun, that you can reach that mag release with your thumb. So what you don't want to be doing is holding the gun and then trying to get over here with
Right.
your other hand and getting that mag release with
release.
this thumb, right? So all of those things kind of go into that fit of the hand and the ergonomics that you want to look for, and you want to make sure that when you have that, when you're gripping the back
Yeah.
of the gun, like underneath that little beaver tail
Like
or
the
dovetail
webbing
or
of your
whatever it
hand,
is.
yeah.
And that's
Wedge
number
should
one
fit
with
snug.
That, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, you wanna
ergonomics,
just-
it has
Yeah.
to fit your
Yeah,
hand.
even right here, you don't want to have to reach over here with that trigger.
Exactly.
You want to have it even here, and then you want to make sure that the thumb hits the mag release and that your finger can hit that trigger.
Yeah.
And
And you
that's
start
what you
with
need to look
that,
for.
and then you just kind of go down the row of
Yeah.
options.
You shouldn't have to give your gun a reach around just to drop
Right.
the mag.
Ma'am, size
I was
matters.
worried about you.
Ma'am.
Bounty, I appreciate you being.
I love it. I love it.
So, in general, when you're talking about hand size, you can think about glove size for people that are doing that, either for the medical field or whatever. Like, you have all the way from extra small all the way to like 2XL. Same thing with clothes and whatever. Those do make a difference. Single stack guns versus double stack guns, you're going to have a girthier grip, right? You also got to think that there's guns, especially hammer fired guns. You do have decockers. You have like a 226.
Yep.
That's
And you
really
gotta be able
far
to-
out.
Yeah,
Can you reach that?
Can't. Yeah.
I have an issue. I had to change my grip for Glocks because I would ride the slide stop lever
Oh,
and it would
yes.
not lock to
See
the
that
rear on the last
happening all
round.
the
Yeah.
time.
Well, and keep in mind, and don't forget that, there are a lot of guns on the market that you can switch out the grip size.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So, make sure you ask about that. If you handle it in the store and you're like, this is a little too big or too small for me, be sure to ask, like, does this come with additional size grips? Can we try those out? That way that you're making that
Yeah.
best decision.
The best option for that, I'm not biased or anything because I work for 80% Arms, but the GST9 Mod 100, it's honestly the best option because you can go between the 19 and the 17. And those are the two most common handguns that people typically start with. And we also offer one that's the S365, and it's the same thing for the P365
That's
for
actually
people who
pretty
want a
rad.
smaller handgun. Yeah. And having the multiple grip options, like, our customers who, like, they'll write us emails saying how awesome it is to, like, be able to switch up their carry, to be able to switch up, their guns and everything for the reason of comfort.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like caliber. It really just starts out with the grip, and that's
Yeah.
why Walther came out with her F series.
The F series, yeah.
because we want to be able to shoot big girl guns, but if we're not able to reach that trigger,
Yeah.
so
And that's why I started with M&P Shield
Yeah.
because the grip was perfect
Right.
to reach the mag release,
Exactly.
the slide lock. But then with training, I wanted to shoot a bigger gun,
Right.
because it's easier to handle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just love my Glock 19, but
Right.
it was a little harder to reach the slide
Exactly.
locks. And even adding a light, I have short. Little little
Right.
hands,
Yeah.
short fingers, and
Yeah.
I can't really reach to turn like the
Exactly.
light on. But there are options out there because
Oh,
I have
absolutely.
and that's why there's a lot of options. We can shoot bigger guns.
Yeah.
If we have a harder time reaching this
Exactly.
extent, you can have all those extended slide lock and same even for the
Exactly.
light. I have all of that on
Yeah.
my Glock 19,
Yeah.
and it's
And you can modify little
modify it,
things here
yeah.
and there to fit you right. But you have
Exactly.
to start out with
you start
something that will fit you, and
Yeah.
then you could modify, stippling, kind of shorten the
Right.
trigger, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Well, and don't forget that you have to start with the why.
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
are you
Right.
what are you solving for here? Are you solving for I'm home a lot and
Right.
I want to just deal with this at home. I feel pretty safe when I go out. Personally, I think that's a little bit of a farce, but it's your life and not mine.
Right.
So if you're just wanting to deal with this at home, that's going to open up a lot of
Exactly.
options for you. But if you say, hey, I'm a female that lives alone, I travel alone, I go to work, I want to be able to carry on my body, well, then you're scaling back options
Yeah.
a little bit because you're
Exactly.
dealing with, concealability versus you can do whatever you want at home,
Right.
but
Exactly.
you have to be able to hide it, or at least you're going to want to hide it,
Exactly.
would be the best decision, on the body. So you're dealing with that as well. Recoil management, big deal. You want to make sure that, you're not only just handling the firearm, in the gun store, but you really want to go somewhere that has a rental inventory. You want to go somewhere where you can kind of try it before you buy it, because you need to know what you're getting into. And then that's going to give you a really good understanding of real estate to caliber ratio. Then you're going to go, okay, well, I like the way that this gun felt in my hand, but then
Right.
I shot it
Now it's
and
right.
like my hand flew off of it, right? So, understand there's an explosion
Yeah.
happening in there. So your real estate to caliber ratio, really, really important. Don't listen to or listen less to when people are telling you, oh, well, you need this round for more stopping power. You need this round for
Yes.
more stopping power. She said somebody was trying to, sell her a revolver. Well, the
Revolver,
reason that
yeah.
they're doing that is because they're trying to give you stopping power. They're trying to take the slide issue away from people with low hand strength, when more often than not, it's because you just haven't been taught the right way
Exactly.
to rack the slide, right? It's a dual motion. It's
Yep.
forward with your strong hand, pull back with the left, and then you just let it go. You don't have to help it forward or anything. So don't listen to or listen less to people that are saying you have to have this certain caliber gun, you have to have a 38 special, or you have to have a 40 or a 45. Listen, if you think that a 380 round won't make you take a dirt nap, I'm here to tell
Exactly.
you otherwise. So don't listen to that at all. So this is really important that you take ownership and you set boundaries with the people that are giving you advice and go, I'm going to pick what I want to pick, and I'm hearing you, but at the end of the day, it's my decision.
Exactly.
Yep.
You never want to buy the first gun you try, ever. You
Pretty much
definitely
never,
want to, don't be afraid to go to ranges with your friends and test fire as many handguns as possible
absolutely.
before buying one. Like what Jairus just said, find a range with plenty of
And there's
rentals.
so many options
There's
now.
so many
So
options.
many, yeah.
However, you have to be careful because some of them don't really update their rental guns.
That's true.
So they'll have a lot of older ones, and they're not typically what's being sold or what's most current.
Right.
So you might find I don't know, more modern range.
Well, and then you get like us and you get FOMO.
Yeah, that is true.
And you're like, what's coming out on the market? What's the next
Yeah.
thing? Yeah. There's pros and cons to everything.
That is true. That is
Absolutely.
true, and that often leads to option anxiety as well. And that's a fear that personally that I faced during my first handgun purchase.
Yeah, and don't be afraid. Just have confidence in your choice.
Right.
I would say shoot at least 5.
yeah,
At least.
5
Yep.
to 8 is a pretty good number, and take notes. Bring a notebook to the range and write out each make and model,
Absolutely.
what you liked about it, what you didn't like about
Yep.
it, and then compare those notes before you buy.
exactly. You should.
But you got to be proactive, and you got to do it now before something bad happens to you.
Exactly.
Like you don't want to wait until after the
Like,
mugging.
I'll wait until,
To go,
yeah.
okay, because then you're gonna have this trauma attached to it. There's gonna be anxiety attached to it. You want to make this decision before the bad things happen.
Exactly.
exactly. Agreed.
And unfortunately, women that are wanting to buy a gun is because mostly
Something bad
something
happened.
bad happened, or to their family, and you're like, oh shoot, maybe I need to figure this out. Yeah.
But
A
they're
lot
too
of
scared.
people, yes, a lot of people are saying things like, "Well, I live in a safe place,
Oh,
or I
yeah.
have a safe neighborhood." There's no safe places.
no
There's
safe-
only safe people.
Exactly.
And you need to understand.
With
Yeah.
me, I had the gun. It only took 2 minutes, and I'm like, where's my gun? Oh, in my purse down there in the slot somewhere.
But you
Yeah.
go
You know?
go out the house, and I mean, look at where stuff happens. It's gas stations. It's
Oh,
it's
out
everywhere.
It's look at all the
Yeah, we
everything
live
we
in a
hear
world
about women in
that's-
parking lots in broad daylight at Walmart, Target,
in the
Yeah.
mall.
in the mall.
In most
It's-
places, to be fair, like most places are now like banning concealed carry and so on, which is making it even harder. So, I mean,
If you're doing it right, they don't know.
exactly. I mean, I'm not saying anything,
Right.
but
If you're doing it right, they don't know.
I had a meme for that.
I think one of the last things that we need to maybe talk about is, compatibility with gear.
Yeah.
So what gear is going to make sense for you? For some people, it's just a belt and a holster. Some people like to purse carry and they want to look at good concealed carry bags. We can talk about why we think that's a bad idea on another podcast, but it's your choice because it's your defense. So I like to pick guns that are, now obviously new stuff that's coming out on the market, you're going to have to wait a little bit for some of that gear to come out. But there are some guns that just aren't compatible with much gear. And so what does that look like for you and what do you want? And so that's something to think about when it comes to choosing that pistol is, am I going to be able to find stuff that's compatible? Like if you want to put, a red dot on it, if you want to put, a light on it, what's my holster options, for this? Because some people want to carry inside the waistband, some people want to carry outside the waistband, depending on how you dress. Can I find a thigh holster for this? What about the ankle? Like all these things, all these different ways to carry are, some of them are better than others, right? We rate them. I have a class called Preparing What You Wear, where I show you how to conceal carry in almost every outfit, but I rate that way of carrying, right? This is the best, and this is kind of the worst, but it's better than nothing. So let's kind of talk through that. So that's kind of the last thing that you want to think about, or is what's on the market and what's going to be compatible with my gun.
Exactly. Like, and just to kind of piggyback off of that, it's also important to keep in mind that your preferences and needs might evolve over time. So
Yes.
that's something to keep
absolutely.
in mind as well. So options like the GST9 Mod 100, it's pretty standard. It's perfect because if right now like you're into carrying like compact, but then you might find that full size is just easier to grip and you can manage your recoil better just because there's more real estate to take up on that thing. You can easily swap it out. Or let's say, or the Smith Defense S365 grip. If, you like full size, but you also want something to concealed carry or you want to wear a different outfit, just swap out that
You
grip.
guys
and-
basically make transtransformers.
We do.
For
Yeah,
guns.
we really do. And it's,
Or like Lego sets for guns.
exactly. And personally, like, I really enjoy what I do, just because like I was hired just at the perfect time. It was right when I was getting into firearms, and I decided to build my own. And it was when we had the GST9 in 80% form, and it really allowed me to customize my own firearm to exactly what I wanted, and it gave me a deeper understanding of its mechanics and its overall performance, which kind of like allowed me to like understand like, oh, this is how a gun works, and oh, I can modify my trigger. I can do so much more with it, and it just really helps. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And
When I'm
building and-
teaching a class,
Yeah.
a lot of the women are like afraid to touch it. I'm like,
that's-
let's break it. So
Yeah.
in my classes, I'm like, let's break it down and let's clean it. And they're like, what? I've never cleaned it before. But when you break your own gun down, put it back together, it is so empowering. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not that scary.
Yeah. I
And
think
that's what
it's kind of
women need
critical
to
too
do,
on
is just-
ownership to be able
And
to do it.
Clean your own guns, ladies.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun.
Exactly.
The nomenclature is just
Yeah.
so important and foundational. And we're just, we're here to urge you to take time out to do this. We know you're busy. We know you've got jobs
Absolutely.
and kids and, things going on. But this is important. This
It
is
is.
really important thing for you to master. And if we can do it, you can do it, man. But
Exactly.
there's people who's got kids at this table.
Yes.
At least 3 of us have kids. Not me, because I'm not one of
No,
them.
no,
I don't have-
But I
There's
think
one of
3
us that has kids.
2 or 3 of us have kids at the table, and they still make time to do it. I mean, she's
Exactly.
a single
Yeah.
mom.
Exactly.
She's a single mom. So if you're sitting out there and you're going, ugh, husband, don't make me watch this. Like, I don't have time to do this. She has time to do it, and
Exactly.
she's a single mom,
You
so
have
she's
to
making
set
it
aside.
happen.
You make
You
it.
do it for your
ca-
child.
Something is important to you.
Exactly.
Your safety is
Yeah.
important to you. Your children. You make time for everything. You make it all fit.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
And
if
it's-
something bad happens and you survive it, you're
Exactly.
gonna wish you listened. And so don't be a part of the I wish I would have club.
Exactly.
And
Go ahead and do
going
it
back
now.
to the gear, like a lot of women, I remember even at the 2A event, they're kind of put off by carrying because they think that they need to change their whole.
Exactly.
the way they dress.
Right.
But it's not like that, and we're gonna go into that,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
in
there's so many
another
companies-
time. But
Yeah.
there's so much stuff out there, so much gear that you don't have to change.
You don't have to change.
You don't have to
absolutely.
change. You know, you
Exactly.
can, and I know that's something that kind of a lot of women brought up, but
Especially
You
in the
don't
last
have
5
to.
years, there's been
Yeah.
the
Oh my gosh,
market
there's-
Yeah.
has really started to listen to the needs and wants of women in this space.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of it.
Exactly.
I know that we spend a lot of time like crapping on guys at gun stores that try to sell us revolvers, but
Yes.
Yeah.
really it's gotten so much better
yeah.
It is.
than it's
Yeah.
been, and there's a lot of things that we have to choose from, but we want to educate you on the things that are gimmicks and the things that actually work. So you know, follow us on social media. You know, I always encourage people, like, find the 4 or 5 women who are really deep in this space that you enjoy their content, you find it relevant and important and educational, and then you need to put a reminder on your calendar to look at their page a couple times a week. You know, do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and just roll through the new posts that they have coming out, because that's going to keep you updated on the things that are coming out on the market, the stuff that they discovered that they really like, and you can
absolutely.
see if it works for you. But don't wait for the algorithm to pick that up. Like, purposefully go, and, you know, don't be overwhelmed. Don't have that option anxiety that you were
Yeah.
talking about earlier. Like, just make it a point to go, these are the 4 or 5 people that I really trust with this information, and you'll discover more over time, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But make sure that you're going to those pages, and it's going to take 5 minutes if you spend 1 minute on each page, because we're not really making these super long videos,
Like this
you
one.
know, that are going to take up a ton of time. And just make sure that you're staying on top of that, because that's how you're going to stay in the know.
If you guys like this type of discussions and want to see more of it, we did do a part 1, which was very, very informative and very, very cool. This is going to be part 2, and likely there's going to be a part like 18 at this pace for what we're doing. I want to thank all 4 of y'all for coming and spreading some wisdom that I'm literally incapable of doing. Thank you. We've added Michelle to our panel.
Finally, I feel
Yes.
so empowered just sitting here.
Yeah.
We missed
Taking
you
notes.
last time.
So there's a lot of dangerous women here at this table that would like for you to be a little bit more dangerous. You can go find us on all of the socials. I will put all of the information for everybody here in the description of this video. And until next time, stay armed and stay dangerous.